Welcome back. My name is Corinne Phillips, and this is Fresh Pea Cooks. So this week, I was reading a blog post. It was titled In Praise of Scruffy Hospitality, and it was written by Robin Shreves. And it was one of those articles that just seemed to take pieces that I felt were unsettled in my life, and they just connected together. And it was this concept of food being the great uniter for all of us. And the idea that for millennia, food has brought people together. It's linked people. It's been the common goal of agrarian societies. And this notion that things don't have to be perfect. The food doesn't have to be perfect. The house doesn't have to be perfect in order to have this communion, this coming together, this sharing connection with other human beings. And it's really beautifully written, but I want to read you the definition of scruffy hospitality. Now, this is from Father Jack on his blog, and I'll link to the entire post below this. So for those of you who would like to read it, you can. And Father Jack describes scruffy hospitality this way. Scruffy hospitality means you're not waiting for everything in your house to be in order before you host or serve friends in your home. Scruffy hospitality means you hunger more for good conversation and for serving a simple meal of what you have, not what you don't have. Scruffy hospitality means you're more interested in quality conversation than the impression your home or lawn makes. If we only share meals with friends when we're excellent, we aren't truly sharing life together. This resonates so much with me as somebody that is a former perfectionist, and I have tendencies to hyperly visualize what a scenario or what a scene or what a meal should look like in my head, right? And if I miss the mark, I'm perpetually disappointed. So taking this approach to food, and it's something that comes very naturally for those of us that are involved and interested in food. All you have to do is go to Pinterest. All you have to do is go to Instagram and put in food, and you'll see these glorious photos that are perfectly lit, perfectly shot, perfectly staged, perfectly styled. And then you'll see these picnics on these bucolic fields in these orchards with these happy, shiny, beautiful people eating this gorgeous food. And it's intimidating, right? Because my house doesn't look like that. My kitchen doesn't look like that. My garden's beautiful, but the rest of the yard is pretty much just wild chickenville. So it's not a stretch to get stuck in this concept of not having things be the right way, or as Father Jack said, focusing on what you don't have. And in American society, we're so consumeristic, we're so materialistic, we're so caught up in the image or the idea of being a certain thing that we focus on what we aren't rather than what we are, or rather than the gifts that we do have to bring. Now, I know personally from my own story, my brother for years said, you have to do a YouTube channel, you have to make videos. And we bought this house to renovate 10 years ago. And I'm like, no, the house is ugly, the kitchen's awful, the tiles terrible, it's dark, there's no lighting in it. And I had all of these reasons why I didn't want to put my kitchen on video. And then the first couple of videos, I think the first two were at my kitchen table, and the second one or the third one was outside. And it was just close-ups because I didn't like the kitchen, and I didn't want to be in the kitchen. Well, I had an interesting conversation with a woman that's a very savvy businesswoman friend of mine, and she said her husband watches my videos, but she doesn't because he's the cook in the family. And so she said, one day I was like, what are you watching? Like, oh, that's a dreadful dark kitchen. And she goes, and then I just started watching. And then I watched another one. And she goes, you know, that kitchen is part of your brand. That's your shtick, because she's all about branding and building businesses. And I thought in horror and kind of laughed at the time. I'm like, let's hope not. And she was like, no, you have to preserve that kitchen. That's part of it. And I thought that was really funny because it was such an interesting perspective, but it was so different than my own. What almost kept me from making videos and connecting and meeting all of you, and doing something that is more fun than anything I've ever done professionally, was something that I've just created. It was a barrier in my own head that I completely created out of nothing. Because my kitchen wasn't the kitchen of my dreams, doesn't mean that I can't still share or connect through food. So this notion of having the perfect yard, the perfect house, having a tidy, clean house, is not something that any of us are interested in. If I'm invited to somebody's home for a meal, I am so stoked that the intimacy of the offer, one, is always not overwhelming, but it's always very touching. And secondly, that somebody would cook a meal and share a meal with me. And if their house is lived in, if their kitchen is messy, if it shows the labor that went into the meal and it hasn't been picked up yet, I love that, because that's what my kitchen looks like when I'm making dinner. And so this notion of food being something that limits us is becoming very prevalent in our culture in America. And food is now being segregated in certain ways. Like, you have vegans, you have paleo, you have vegetarian, you have meat and potatoes, you have all of these different kind of ideas of what people eat, these different camps of, I only eat this kind of food and I'm not going to eat any of that kind of food. That's very limiting. And for those of you that have celiacs or have allergies, you know this intuitively. It keeps you from going out to restaurants. It provides a barrier when you go to somebody's house. Like, I experience this myself because I'm not a meat eater. And so I always have to feel like I have to say, can I bring something? You know, I'm a plant-based eater. Can I bring a vegetarian dish is usually what I offer. And just by the mere offer of vegetarian dish, people generally understand that I'm going to bring something that I can eat so that you don't have to cook something special for me. Or if I know that I'm going to a place where it's like a barbecue, I will offer to bring, you know, sauteed mushrooms that we can throw on the grill, or something that doesn't put my eating burden onto my host, and that allows me, because I can always eat stuff. There's always like bread and salads, and even if I have to like pick meat chunks out, I'm fine with that. But I understand that that is a limitation, and when I travel, it's really a limitation, because some cultures are very meat based. And I remember one really amazing opportunity. And I'm not a person to look back, and so I don't have regrets in life, because I feel like everything is as it is and as it should be. But we were invited to an exhumation, which I don't remember what country we were in. Somewhere, was it Sri Lanka? I don't remember. But we were in some other country where they bury their dead. After a year, they dig them up, they clean all of the bones off, and then they put them in this kind of permanent casket, which is a small carved stone casket, and then they bury it, or they put it in the cave. And it was a 2-day hike up into the mountains to the burial site, and then the actual exhumation, and then the cleaning and the ceremony and the ritual that goes around that. and then the 2-day walk. And the only thing that they were taking for food were goats. And I was like, okay, 4 days hiking without food. And that was how I was thinking, because I couldn't actually see those little goats walking along and then eat them. Like, personally, I just can't do that. And so I'm like, okay, I've done a 4-day fast before. I've not eaten for 4 days. And I'm like, I haven't not eaten for 4 days and walked for 4 days. So I'm like, and it would be considered rude if I brought my own food. And so we didn't go. And I really regret the fact that I didn't just buck up and eat the goat, even though I just don't know that I would be able to. But I could have at least gone and tested the 4-day walking fast. And so I see that as being a limitation for me, but it's just something that goes against my constitution. I just can't eat animals. It really bothers me. And so, that's a limitation. But as a cook, I also kind of work double time to overcome that. And so inviting people into my home and inviting people over for a meal when things are perfect, when things aren't perfect. When I got a new pizza oven, but I had no idea how to throw pizza, and I really still don't. So I make these really crazy misshapen pizzas, and sometimes they get black on one side because I start chatting, and and they're not perfect, but the experience of having people here, having people outside, throwing the pizzas, eating together, showing people how to make their own pizza is always so extraordinary, and it's far from perfect, but it's communion. And this blog post on Scruffy Hospitality really speaks to me, because when you look at food channels or food shows on TV, the kitchen is perfect. Everything's prepped, like the food looks beautiful, and we're watching this more than ever, and it's filtering into our collective psyche for sure, that this concept that's what food needs to look like in order to share it. But that's so far from true, because food, it is culture, it is communion, it is that kind of great equalizer for all of us. And to be able to share food is wonderful. But even if you aren't a cook, don't let that stop you. This article talks about this woman. She goes out into the garden and she picks whatever is ripe and she makes a salsa and has chips, and everybody brings stuff. Somebody brings a wedge of cheese that has already been cut into. Somebody brings half a baguette and just cuts up the rest of it and toasts it. And she said, for some reason, it all falls into place and we all have a delightful meal that everybody's participated in. And for all of you eaters out there, do you break bread with your friends, with family, with neighbors or coworkers? Do you invite people into your home? And is food, has it become a barrier, or is it a barrier for you? And let's brainstorm together and answer comments of each other. I love when you guys have dialogue, not just with me, but with one another. And find some crafty solutions to get through this kind of isolation that we collectively build around ourselves, and see if we can't use food as the great uniter and to bring us all together, because it really is powerful when you sit down and you share a meal with somebody that maybe you don't know very well, but just might over time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And I've got a bunch of stuff coming up that I'm really excited about. I may be doing a lecture on food. If not this year, then probably most definitely the coming year. And I've got some ideas on topics, and I'd love to run some of those by you guys. Which one would interest you most? And I have a long time collaboration that I've been trying to do with the Idaho Painter on meals for working guys and gals. Those of you who take lunch boxes out into the field and need healthy options for delicious, nutritious lunches. So that's another thing that I want to get rolling. Nicole Hart from Seattle, a fellow YouTuber, she and I have been working on a collaboration. She does a lot of like body remedies and healthcare stuff. And so if you guys are interested in that, let me know what you'd like to see us make together. Leave that in the comments. And yeah, just some fun stuff. I want to do some cooking basics. I've been wanting to do this forever. And just like fundamentals, sauteing, roasting, simple techniques that will make you a pro in the kitchen, even if you don't feel like it now. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time.